The wind was sharp in the valley, carrying dust and broken whispers from the ruins that had slept for centuries. Ryan pulled his cloak tighter around his shoulders as he climbed the cracked steps of the fortress. Stones shifted under his boots, and each sound echoed in the emptiness. The fortress had belonged to a forgotten empire, one that even the newest archives barely remembered. Yet, something about it called to him something beyond history, beyond maps. Ryan was not a soldier, not even a trained explorer. He was a simple traveler who loved searching the edges of lost places. Many said humans were reckless for stepping where wiser species stayed away. Perhaps they were right, but Ryan carried a belief: where shadows lingered, there was also the chance of light. The fortress walls rose around him like tired giants, their surfaces covered in moss and faint carvings. He brushed his hand over the stone, feeling grooves cut long ago. They seemed like stories, but in a language his eyes could not read. The main hall was hollow, with fallen beams and silence as heavy as stone. Dust swirled whenever he moved, and even his own breathing sounded too loud. Then, as he searched deeper, Ryan noticed something unusual. A narrow passage opened to his left, half hidden behind a collapsed column. The space beyond was darker, yet strangely inviting. He felt a pull, like the ruins themselves were guiding him. Against better judgment, he followed. The passage twisted and narrowed until he had to crouch. He almost turned back, but then the tunnel opened suddenly into a wide chamber. His eyes widened. The walls were covered in material unlike stone, unlike metal, something soft and smooth, shining faintly in deep shades of violet and crimson. It was like velvet woven with light. The chamber seemed alive, as if it breathed with him. When he stepped closer, the walls rippled gently, as though responding to his presence. Ryan froze. He had read about alien ruins that rejected intruders, sealing their secrets forever. But this place, this chamber, welcomed him. He lifted a hand and touched the wall. Warmth spread across his palm, and the velvet surface glowed brighter, forming delicate patterns that moved like flowing water. It was not frightening, it was beautiful, like a heartbeat made visible. "Why me?" he whispered, his voice swallowed by the chamber. No answer came, but the light grew stronger, illuminating the room fully. At the center was a platform, smooth and clear, like crystal shaped into a circle. Strange symbols hovered above it, shimmering in the air. Ryan stepped closer, his curiosity stronger than his caution. The platform hummed, and the symbols shifted, aligning into shapes he somehow understood, not words, but feelings: chosen, worth. Test. Ryan's heart pounded. Chosen. He was just a wanderer, not a hero, not a scholar. Yet the chamber seemed certain. It had waited, perhaps for centuries, for someone to step into its shadows and awaken its velvet glow. And that someone, impossibly, was him. He sat on the edge of the platform, breathing slowly. The hum of the chamber was gentle, like a lullaby. For the first time in many weeks of traveling, he felt a sense of belonging, as if this place had been waiting for a human hand. He wondered how many others had tried, how many other species had stepped into this place only to be turned away. What made humans different? What made him different? The silence of the chamber was not empty. It was watchful, almost protective. Ryan could feel it wrapping around him, not with fear but with quiet comfort. He leaned back slightly, staring at the glowing velvet walls. Shadows stretched across the surface, moving in strange patterns, almost like they were alive. Somewhere deep inside, he knew this discovery was only the beginning, that the chamber held more than soft walls and gentle light. Something hidden slept within it, and now it had stirred. But in that moment, Ryan was not afraid. He was only filled with wonder. He smiled faintly, speaking into the air, "If you have secrets, I'll find them. If you have tests, I'll face them." The velvet walls pulsed once, softly, as though they had heard. And in the shadows of the velvet chamber, the story began. The velvet chamber glowed faintly around Ryan, wrapping him in light both strange and gentle. He stood at the center, staring at the rippling walls, when a sudden sound echoed through the passage behind him. A soft scrape, like boots against stone. Ryan turned quickly. He was not alone. A figure stepped out from the shadows of the narrow passage. The glow of the chamber revealed her tall, slender, her skin marked with faint silver lines that shimmered as she moved. Her dark eyes glowed faintly, not with anger, but with sharp awareness. She carried a staff that pulsed with quiet energy, and her steps were steady, cautious. Ryan froze, unsure if she was friend or enemy. The stories he had heard about her people were mixed: wise, disciplined, but also wary of humans. The stranger studied him for a long moment, her gaze moving from his face to the glowing walls that responded to him. Then she spoke, her voice low and steady. "You should not be here." Ryan swallowed, keeping his tone calm. "I didn't mean to intrude. I was exploring the ruins, and the chamber opened for me." Her eyes narrowed. "That is impossible." She stepped closer, tapping her staff lightly against the velvet wall. The chamber ignored her, giving no glow, no response. But when Ryan shifted, the light pulsed warmly, filling the space. The contrast was clear. The stranger tilted her head slightly, curiosity breaking through her stern expression. "It reacts to you. Only you." Ryan nodded slowly. "I don't understand it either." For a while, silence stretched between them, heavy with questions neither could answer. Finally, she lowered her staff, though she did not relax completely. "My name is Myra," she said at last. "I was assigned to watch these ruins. My people feared something dangerous might awaken here." Ryan offered a faint smile, though he felt the tension. "I'm Ryan. Just a traveler who takes too many risks." Myra's lips curved almost into a smile, but it vanished quickly. She circled the chamber, her eyes scanning the glowing patterns. "This place is old," she said. "Older than my people, older than yours. It was built as a trial. Those who entered it long ago, they never returned." Ryan looked at the velvet walls, still pulsing softly around him. "Then why does it let me in? Why not you?" Myra paused, studying him again. "Perhaps humans have something the chamber wants." The thought made Ryan uneasy. He had never thought of himself as special. But the way the walls responded to him, the way the chamber almost breathed with him, it was undeniable. He rubbed the back of his neck, trying to think of what to say. Myra's voice softened, though it still carried caution. "If it truly accepts you, then we may need each other. I cannot enter its heart without you, and you cannot face its dangers without me." Ryan blinked. "Dangers?" She tapped her staff lightly against the floor. "The chamber is not just velvet and light. Something was sealed here. If it awakens fully, both of us may regret opening these doors." The idea made Ryan's chest tighten, but he saw honesty in Myra's expression. She was not trying to frighten him, she was warning him. Still, he could not ignore the quiet spark of curiosity he felt. For years he had traveled, searching for places like this, dreaming of discoveries no one else had seen. And now here he was, standing in a chamber that welcomed him, with a stranger who treated him not as a thief, but as a key. Ryan met Myra's eyes. Then we'll face it together. I may not know much, but I won't run. For the first time, Myra's stern expression softened. Her gaze held his for a moment longer than necessary, and she gave a slow nod. Very well, traveler. We will see if your courage matches your words. The chamber pulsed gently, as if approving their fragile alliance. Shadows rippled along the velvet walls, moving like living things, but neither Ryan nor Myra stepped back. Instead, they stood together at the edge of something vast and uncertain. For the first time in the ruins, Ryan did not feel alone. And for the first time, Myra wondered if perhaps humans carried something her people had forgotten, the ability to trust quickly, even in the shadows. The velvet chamber no longer felt like a silent tomb. With two voices inside it, the air seemed warmer, more alive. Ryan and Myra moved carefully along the glowing walls, each step watched by shadows that rippled faintly, like the room itself was listening. At first, they spoke little. Myra walked with slow precision, her staff touching the floor at regular intervals, as if she was measuring every step. Ryan followed behind, his eyes drawn to the way the walls responded to him alone, glowing brighter whenever he came near. The difference between them was clear, yet the chamber forced them to stay together. Finally, Ryan broke the silence. Have you been watching these ruins for long? Myra glanced at him briefly. Yes. My people rotate guardians every year. This is my second term. Guardians? Ryan asked. She nodded. We protect places like this. Not to use them, but to keep others from making mistakes. Long ago, many tried to unlock these chambers. They failed. Some vanished. Some returned broken. Her voice dropped lower. And so we keep watch. Ryan considered her words. Then you must think I'm a fool for stepping inside. Myra's eyes softened, though her face remained calm. Not a fool. Bold. Reckless, yes. But the chamber accepts you. That means something. Ryan laughed quietly. I've been called reckless before. Never bold. For a brief moment, Myra's lips curved into a faint smile. It was small, almost hidden, but Ryan noticed. The chamber pulsed brighter, as though it approved of even the smallest spark of trust between them. They continued their walk, tracing symbols that appeared and faded on the velvet surface. Myra explained what she could, describing how the symbols carried meaning in energy rather than words. Ryan listened closely, though much of it was beyond him. Still, he asked questions, curious about everything: her language, her people, her duty. You seem to know so much, Ryan said. When I was younger, I thought knowledge came from books. But you carry it like memory. Myra tilted her head slightly. My people are taught early to listen, not just to words, but to silence. What we protect teaches us more than any book. Ryan nodded, though quietly he thought humans had their own gift: imagination. The ability to see what was not there yet, to dream of what could be. He kept that thought to himself for now. Hours passed inside the chamber, but neither felt tired. At one point, they shared food. Ryan handed Myra a wrapped piece of dried fruit from his bag. She accepted it carefully, as though unsure if it was safe, then tasted it. Her eyes widened slightly. It is sweet, she said. Ryan chuckled. It's from a small orchard near my home. My family grows them. Myra looked at the fruit, then at him. Humans carry simple gifts. Yet you offer them freely. Something in her voice touched Ryan. To her, even a piece of fruit was unusual, maybe even rare. He realized then how different their worlds were. And yet, sitting side by side on the crystal platform, sharing food in the velvet glow, the distance between them felt smaller. Later, while examining one corner of the chamber, Ryan stumbled on loose stone. He nearly fell, but Myra caught his arm quickly, her grip surprisingly firm. For a second, they stood very close, her steady eyes meeting his startled ones. "You move like someone chasing clouds," she said softly. "Always forward, never careful." Ryan smiled nervously. "And you move like someone counting every step. Maybe between us, we'll find balance." Myra released his arm slowly, but she did not argue. The chamber pulsed again, brighter than before. Symbols shifted across the velvet walls, flowing together to form shapes that almost resembled two figures standing side by side. Ryan and Myra both stared, recognizing it as more than chance. The chamber seemed to respond not just to him, but to the bond growing between them. Myra's voice was quiet. "It watches us." Ryan nodded. "Maybe it wants to see if we can trust each other." Neither spoke after that, but the silence between them was no longer heavy. It was softer, filled with unspoken understanding. For the first time, Myra allowed herself to wonder if this human so reckless, yet so open might hold a key not just to the chamber, but to something her people had forgotten long ago, the courage to trust, and the courage to feel. And for Ryan, the thought of leaving the ruins no longer felt right. The velvet chamber was no longer just stone and mystery. It was a bridge, and Myra was on the other side of it. The velvet chamber was quiet, almost too quiet. Ryan and Myra stood side by side, staring at the glowing walls as the shifting symbols grew darker in color. Where before they had pulsed softly, now they stretched into sharp lines, like cracks of shadow crawling across velvet. Ryan frowned. "It's changing." Myra gripped her staff tightly. Her silver-lined skin shimmered faintly, as though reacting to the chamber's shift. "This is what I feared. The deeper we go, the more it stirs." "What stirs?" Ryan asked, though part of him already guessed. Myra's voice was low and steady, almost like she was speaking to herself. "Long ago, the first explorers of this place wrote of a shadow. Not a creature of flesh, but of thought. It feeds on doubt and fear. My people tried to seal it here so it could never spread." Ryan's chest tightened. "And now we've woken it up." The velvet walls pulsed sharply, as if in answer. A ripple of darkness spread across them, blotting out the gentle glow. For the first time since he had entered, Ryan felt cold. The air grew heavy, thick, almost hard to breathe. Then a voice echoed, not Myra's, not his own, but something that came from everywhere at once. It was not words at first, only whispers, like many voices speaking together. Slowly, the whispers shaped into meaning. "Fragile human, foolish guardian." Ryan's eyes darted around. "Did you hear that?" Myra's jaw tightened. "Yes." She lifted her staff, ready, though her voice shook slightly. "Do not listen too closely. It speaks to weaken." But the shadow voice pressed on, its whispers slipping into their minds. "To you, Myra, your people cast you here, far from home. Do they trust you? Or did they send you to fail where others failed before?" Myra stiffened. The silver lines on her skin dimmed for a moment. The whispers turned to Ryan. And you, human wanderer, you are nothing. No training. No bloodline. Just a drifter chasing broken stones. Do you think you are chosen? Do you think this chamber loves you? The words sank deep, like poison. For a moment, Ryan's heart faltered. He was no hero. He had no reason to be here. He was just, ordinary. But then he looked at Myra. Her eyes were hard, focused, even though the whispers clawed at her. She fought them with sheer will. Ryan clenched his fists. He remembered why he had kept walking through ruins, why he had kept searching even when others laughed at him. Not because he was special, but because humans dreamed of what others feared to touch. He took a step forward, speaking firmly into the heavy air. You can whisper all you want. But I know what I am. I'm human. And humans don't stop just because shadows try to scare them. The chamber pulsed, the light flaring briefly as if answering his defiance. Myra's grip on her staff tightened. She straightened, her silver lines glowing brighter again. She added her own words, sharp and steady. You speak of fear, shadow, but you forget. Fear can unite as well as divide. The whispers twisted into a low growl, the velvet walls rippling violently. From the floor of the chamber, darkness began to rise, shapes forming like liquid smoke, curling into tall figures with empty faces. They stepped forward, surrounding Ryan and Myra. Ryan's pulse raced. He had no weapon, no training. But Myra moved beside him, staff raised, her stance protective. Stay close to me, she said firmly. Ryan nodded, though his instinct was not just to hide behind her. He looked at the velvet walls, glowing faintly whenever he moved. An idea stirred in his mind. If the chamber reacted to him, maybe it could be more than a cage, it could be a shield, or even a weapon. As the first shadow figure lunged forward, Myra struck with her staff. Light burst from its tip, scattering the darkness. But two more shapes closed in, their whispers filling the chamber again. Ryan pressed his hand to the nearest wall. Come on, he muttered, if you chose me, then help me now. The velvet pulsed under his hand, light spreading outward in a wave that pushed back the shadows. Myra's eyes widened for a moment, but she didn't hesitate. She swung her staff in rhythm with the spreading glow, each strike landing with more force, as though the chamber itself lent her strength. Together, they stood in the center of the storm, one human and one guardian, their fear real but their resolve stronger. The shadow hissed louder, its voice shaking the chamber. You cannot last. You are too different. You will break. But Ryan shouted back, his voice steady. Then we'll break together, but we won't give in. For a moment, the darkness faltered, the chamber's velvet walls glowing brighter in answer. The shadow had awakened, but so had something else, a fragile bond that refused to bend. The chamber trembled as the shadow pressed harder, its dark form circling like hunters around prey. The velvet walls no longer glowed softly but throbbed with restless energy, caught between light and darkness. Ryan and Myra stood at the center, backs almost touching, their breaths heavy but steady. The whispers returned, sharper than before. Guardian Myra, you cannot trust him. He is weak. He will fail you, as all humans fail. Myra's grip tightened on her staff. The words cut deeper than she wanted to admit. For years, her people had warned against trusting outsiders. She had been trained to watch, to judge, to stand apart. Yet here she was, standing beside a human who carried no weapon, No training, only courage. Her thoughts wavered, and the shadows leaned closer. The voice turned to Ryan. And you, wanderer, do you not see? She doubts you already. She will leave you the moment danger grows too great. You are alone. The whispers clawed at Ryan's chest, but he shook his head quickly. He thought of Myra's steady eyes when she had caught his arm, of her faint smile when she tasted the fruit he shared. She could have left him the moment the chamber grew dangerous, yet she had stayed. That meant something. He looked over his shoulder at her. Myra, don't listen. I don't care what it says. I trust you. The words hit her harder than any whisper. She glanced at him, surprise flickering in her eyes. Trust. In this place of shadows, where even light could twist, he trusted her without hesitation. The shadow hissed angrily. Dark figures lunged again, their arms stretching like claws. Myra swung her staff, scattering two, but a third slipped past her strike and rushed toward Ryan. Without thinking, Ryan stepped forward, putting himself between the shadow and Myra. He raised his hands, though he had no weapon. The darkness struck him square in the chest, and for a heartbeat the chamber went silent. Myra gasped, her silver lines flaring bright. Ryan. But instead of collapsing, Ryan stood firm. The velvet walls behind him pulsed with light, pouring into him, wrapping him in a faint glow. The shadow shrieked, recoiling as if burned. Ryan clenched his teeth, pressing both palms against the velvet wall. You think fear is enough to stop us? You're wrong. His voice was raw but steady. Humans don't need to be perfect. We just need to keep trying, and I won't stop. The light spread out from him, flooding across the chamber in waves. For a moment, the dark shapes broke apart, swirling helplessly in the glow. Myra stared, her chest tight. She saw no weakness in him, no hesitation. Where her people might have doubted, he believed so much that he risked himself without question. And not just for survival, but for her. She stepped to his side, placing her staff against the wall beside his hand. Then let us fight as one. The chamber responded instantly. Her silver lines lit like fire, his glow deepened, and together the two lights merged, weaving across the velvet walls. The chamber sang with energy, brighter than it had ever been since they entered. The shadow's voice shrieked in fury. You cannot unite. You are too different. Your bond will break. But Myra raised her staff high, her voice clear. It will not break. And Ryan echoed, his hand steady on the wall. We won't let it. The chamber pulsed like a living heart, blasting out a wave of light that struck the shadows. One by one, the dark forms dissolved, melting into smoke that was swept back into the walls. The whispers grew faint, twisting into nothing more than distant echoes. At last, silence fell. The velvet walls glowed warm again, not sharp, not heavy, but soft and steady, like the beating of calm breath. Ryan staggered, exhausted, but Myra caught his arm, steadying him. For a moment, they stood close, their faces lit by the gentle glow. You risked yourself for me, she said quietly. Ryan gave a tired smile. That's what humans do. We protect the people who stand with us. Myra's gaze held his, and for once, she did not hide the warmth in her eyes. Perhaps, that is what makes you chosen. The chamber pulsed softly, as though agreeing. And in that velvet light, Ryan and Myra knew the battle was not finished, but their choice had been made. They would stand together against shadows, against doubts, against anything that waited. The velvet chamber pulsed with energy as Ryan and Myra stood side by side, their hands brushing the glowing walls. The shadows had been driven back, but the chamber itself seemed restless, as if it were waiting for the final test. Ryan wiped sweat from his brow, still trembling slightly. That was close. Myra's silver lines glimmered softly in the chamber's light. Close is not enough. The shadow is weakened, but not gone. It lingers, feeding on doubt and fear. We must end this now. Ryan nodded, glancing at the walls. The chamber responds to me. Maybe I can help. Myra studied him carefully. Then we do it together. You focus the light, I guide the energy. If we fail, the chamber may collapse, but if we succeed, she left the thought unfinished, but Ryan understood. Success meant sealing the shadow forever. He took a deep breath, placing both hands firmly on the velvet wall. The light flowed into him, gentle at first, then stronger, moving through his veins like warmth and fire combined. The shadow hissed in the distance, recoiling from the wave of brightness. Myra raised her staff, channeling her own energy in rhythm with the light Ryan held. Focus, she said, her voice calm but firm. Listen to the chamber. Trust it, trust us. Ryan closed his eyes, breathing deeply. The chamber's pulse became a heartbeat in his mind. He let his thoughts clear, letting only courage and trust remain. The glow spread outward, touching the edges of the chamber, racing along the velvet walls. The shadows shrieked and surged, forming twisted shapes that lunged toward them. Yet every strike they attempted was met with light. Ryan felt the glow strengthen beneath his palms, flowing faster with each pulse. Myra moved with precision, guiding the energy from his hands into the platform at the center. You're doing it, Myra said softly, almost a whisper. Ryan opened his eyes and saw the center platform respond. Symbols swirled into perfect alignment, spinning and locking into place. The velvet walls shimmered with brilliant color, light stretching through every shadowed corner. The chamber was alive not just with him, but with both of them working as one. The shadow roared, its voice shaking the very air. You cannot destroy me. You are weak. Your bond is fragile. Ryan met Myra's eyes, holding her gaze. We are not weak. We are stronger together. Myra nodded, energy flowing from her staff into the walls, guiding the chamber's power. Together, their combined will formed a radiant wave, sweeping across the floor, lifting the shadow from its hiding places. Dark forms twisted and recoiled, then dissolved into nothing, swallowed by the velvet light. For a moment, the chamber was silent. Only the gentle hum of glowing walls remained. The air felt lighter, warm, safe. The shadows were gone. Ryan sank to one knee, exhausted but smiling faintly. Myra knelt beside him, her staff resting on the floor, silver lines dimming as the energy faded. We did it, Ryan said softly. Myra's voice was quiet, thoughtful. Yes. But it was not your strength alone, nor mine. It was both of us, together. Ryan nodded, feeling the truth of her words. The chamber no longer seemed tense or watchful. Instead, it radiated calm, like a heartbeat slowing after a long run. He looked at Myra, gratitude and admiration shining in his eyes. Thank you for trusting me, he said. Myra shook her head slightly, a small smile forming. No, thank you. You reminded me that even in darkness, courage can shine brighter than any fear. And humans, perhaps you are not so fragile after all. For the first time, they laughed softly, the sound echoing warmly against the velvet walls. The chamber responded with a gentle glow, like approval. Ryan stood, brushing off dust from his cloak. "I guess this means we've earned the chamber's respect." Myra smiled, standing as well. "It seems so. And perhaps, it also reminds us that we are stronger when we trust each other." The two of them walked toward the exit, side by side. Outside, the wind of the ruins blew softly, but the heaviness of fear was gone. They had faced shadows together, and neither had faltered. The bond between them was no longer just trust, it was understanding, courage, and something deeper, something unspoken yet undeniable. The velvet chamber remained behind them, glowing softly, holding its secrets and its light for the next traveler. But for Ryan and Myra, it had given them something far greater, the knowledge that together, they could face even the darkest shadows. The velvet chamber was quiet now, soft light flowing gently over the walls. Shadows had vanished, leaving only warmth and calm. Ryan and Myra stood together at the center, letting the energy fade from their hands. The glow lingered around them like a gentle embrace, as if the chamber itself celebrated their victory. Ryan turned to Myra, noticing the way her eyes reflected the soft light. For the first time, she looked less like a distant guardian and more like someone he could truly reach. The air between them felt charged, not with danger, but with something new, something neither had expected. "You were incredible," Myra said softly. I have seen many humans, Ryan, but none like you. You faced fear without hesitation. You risked yourself without thought of reward." Ryan smiled faintly, feeling warmth rise in his chest. "I only did what felt right. I couldn't let you face it alone. And I couldn't let the chamber win either. Not when we've come this far together." Myra studied him, her silver lines shimmering faintly in the chamber's light. "Together," she echoed. The word hung between them, heavy with meaning. She had spent years learning to trust few, yet here she was, standing beside a human whose courage had shown her a truth she had almost forgotten, that connection could be stronger than fear. Ryan reached out, hesitating for only a moment before taking her hand gently. Myra didn't pull away. Instead, she let her fingers intertwine with his. The chamber seemed to respond, walls glowing brighter, pulsing like a heartbeat. For a moment, the ruins were no longer a place of trials, but a space of understanding. "You trust me," Myra said quietly, her voice almost a whisper. "I do," Ryan replied firmly, his eyes meeting hers. "And I care about you. Not just as a companion, but, more." Myra felt a warmth spread through her chest. Her heart, usually steady and controlled, skipped a beat. She had never imagined this human could awaken such feelings, yet she could not deny them. I care about you too," she admitted, softly. The chamber pulsed once, softly, as if affirming their honesty. Shadows and fear had been banished, leaving only light, and the space between them felt fuller than either had known. They stood close, hands still joined, sharing a moment without words, feeling the strength of the bond they had built. Ryan looked around the chamber one last time. "I think this place, it wanted us to find each other. Not just to survive, but to see what humans can do. Not just with courage, but with trust and care." Myra nodded, a small smile touching her lips. "Perhaps it wanted to remind us that even in the darkest places, connection can light the way. That hope is stronger than shadows." They began to walk toward the exit, hand in hand. Outside, the ruins stretched under the soft glow of the setting sun. Dust swirled in the warm light, but the danger that had haunted the chamber was gone. It was no longer just a place of fear, it was a memory of courage, trust, and the beginning of something new. Ryan glanced at Myra. "Do you think we could explore more places together? Not just ruins, but the world?" Myra laughed softly, a sound that seemed to lift the air around them. "Perhaps. I would not have imagined this before, but, yes. With you, I think I could face anything." They walked together across the ancient stones, their steps in rhythm, their bond strengthened by the trials they had faced. The chamber's light faded behind them, but the memory of it and the connection it had fostered would remain. At the edge of the ruins, Ryan paused and looked at Myra. "No matter where we go, I'll stand by you. Always." Myra reached for his hand again, squeezing it gently. "And I, you. Together, we are stronger than any shadow." The sun dipped lower, casting long golden rays across the valley. The world felt wider now, full of possibilities. Ryan and Myra stood side by side, not as human and guardian, not as stranger and watcher, but as two hearts that had found each other. And in that moment, the ruins no longer held shadows, only light. The velvet chamber had tested them, and in return, it had given them something far greater, the beginning of a bond that could endure anything, beyond worlds, beyond fear, and beyond shadows. Hand in hand, Ryan and Myra stepped forward, leaving the chamber behind, but carrying its lessons and its light in their hearts forever.